Hey, this is Joe from Personas. I want to talk to you today about how Channel Overview can help you mix faster in Studio One. If you're not familiar, Studio One version 6 added this feature called Channel Overview, and I want to talk about that here today. So, for example, here is these yellow tracks are a couple of vocal tracks feeding a vocal bus. I've got 4 plugins and 2 sends on this channel. Now, historically, the way Studio One has worked, if I want to work on any of these plugins, I double click on them. By the way, if you're a Sphere member, you have VT1 in your account. It's this tube modeling channel strip. Very cool. I highly encourage you check it out. But then once I've got a window open on this channel, I can see all the different plugins up here. So they're like tabs in a browser, right? I can click through and see the different plugins. And that's the workflow to adjust different parameters. I've had to work this way. No big deal, but it's just the way that it has always worked. Well, now we've added this button here, which is called the Overview or Channel Overview button. When we click that, the view changes to a more standardized view. So now it is showing me everything that's going on in this channel, not just the plugins. We already had that, but now I'm seeing a full-sized fader here, all the appropriate buttons, the input gain, everything is here available to me, including even like the notes field. Which is pretty handy. So if you think about it this way, it's kind of a standardized approach to whatever plugin you're using. So they're all going to show up here, whether I've got 1 send or 10, it all shows up in this kind of overview window. And the way Studio One works is as I move into my session, if I've got the channel overview turned on for a particular channel, as I switch between them, we can see the channel overview follows with me. So what are some uses of that? I mean, I'm seeing the fader and the plugins here, but I also see the fader and the plugins here. How is this useful? Well, there's a couple of ways that I would use this. One would be, probably the most popular way, is mixing from this window. So if you are, let's say you've done all your basic level setting and you're doing some tweaking, or maybe you're still in the production phase and you're adding in some plugins to try out different sounds, you can now access everything on a channel with this floating window. So I can move this window wherever it needs to be, and as I go through, for example, clicking through the individual different channels here, that whole window changes. So I have kind of if you think of it as a little bit like the fader port, the single channel fader port, it's kind of like a on-screen version of that, but with a lot more control, because now I can access all of my different plugins and my sends and my returns, all without having to even open up the console window. Now, I love the console window. I think it's handy, but back in my Pro Tools days, one of the things I used to do a lot is I would mix from this view. And the way Pro Tools did it was you had your faders here, and you could open up your plugins in a column here, and so on and so forth. With Studio One, the way you can get to those historically is by pressing F4, opens up this side view, which looks a lot like our console channel. But now you don't even have to have this open. So if you like to have a nice clean screen without any extra windows, this can be the only other window that's open. You can put it wherever you want to have it. You can even have it on a separate screen if you want. And now, as I'm going through, as I look at my acoustic guitars, I can see, okay, here's what's going on that track. What's going on this bus? Okay, what's going on the bass bus? All right, that one's got this EQ. But what else is happening on that bus? I can hit this button to see the whole thing. And by the way, we can set up a shortcut to engage this overview, so you're not having to click that button all the time. You can just have a keyboard shortcut, whatever you'd like it to be, to turn that on and off. But now you can see, as we toggle through this mix, we're able to see, okay, what just came in? Hang on, oh, those guitars just came in. What's going on there? And I can say, okay, that one's panned left, that one's panned to the right. I've got a gain there. What's going on with the vocals? Okay, here's what's happening with the vocals. So it's a cool new way. I wouldn't say this is like the only way to mix, obviously. I'm curious to see, as I do mixes moving forward, how I incorporate this into my workflow. But it's a pretty handy thing to have. I could even see having this. I've occasionally used an iPad as a second monitor and had it just below my monitor. And the layout of this is very similar to the size of my little iPad mini. So I imagine putting this down, even down below, so I can have my full screen dedicated to this arranger view, and then this overview on the bottom. And what's cool is it has the same format every time, right? No matter what channel I switch to, the size of the window doesn't change, unless, of course, it's not turned on for that channel. And I can go through and I can say, okay, here's what's happening here, here's what's happening here. It's kind of a standardizing format, so that no matter what happens, what channel I pull up, whether it has 2 plugins or 20, they all just show up in the same spot. And I like that idea, and I feel like that's going to connect with a lot of mixers. And I can still access everything I could access on this specific channel in the mixer, but now I can access it from this window without ever having to leave. I mean, you could say goodbye to the mixer. That would be sad for me personally, but you could say goodbye to the mixer window forever and just mix from here and get a lot of great work done. I'd love to hear how you're using the channel overview feature and what you think about it. And what are your other favorite version 6 features? By the way, if you're not using version 6 yet, you can get into it for as little as $14.95. That is how much a Sphere membership costs per month. You can sign up today, download version 6, and start playing with this evening. Go check it out on our website. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.